It's pretty obvious, even to a casual observer, what it is that St. John is doing with his gospel by intentionally opening his testimony with the very words with which the book of Genesis are opened. In the beginning. And so what John is signaling is that with the birth of Jesus Christ, God is beginning a new creation. That just as we saw in the book of Genesis, as God said, "Let there be light," and then he began to impose form, order, and intelligibility into the created world, so that light and that Word through whom all things were made would be made flesh, enter into this world, and begin to live among us, to restore what had been lost and to repair what had been broken, to redeem a people and make them worthy of the heavenly habitations that God our Father is preparing for those who have faith in his Son, Jesus Christ. Last night, I used a silly illustration to make a particular point, and because I'm personally fond of it, I'm going to share it with you so you don't feel left out. Let's imagine that you're at home and you're using your glorious Starlink internet service, but something goes wrong. It goes defunct, and it's not functioning properly. And so you call tech support, and you get no assistance. And even tech support is something at a loss. And so they say, "We will send someone over to look into it personally." And shortly thereafter, there's a knock at the door, and you open the door, and standing there in a vest and a tool belt is none other than Elon Musk himself, the creator and inventor of Starlink. I mean, consider the astonishment and the amazement and even a sense of honor that someone as important and dignified would come to attend to your needs personally. So devoted he is to the things that he has made. And so the question becomes, and I think it's a fair question, is that when we consider the Word through whom all things were made and became flesh, where is our sense of astonishment? Where is our sense of amazement? Do we feel honored that the God who made us would take on human flesh precisely so that, redeeming us, he might make us partakers in his divine nature? And that all begins today. But it's not Elon Musk standing at your door with a tool belt. It is Jesus Christ bearing his cross, knocking at the door of your heart, pleading to enter in. You know, we're told in the scriptures that the invisible God can be known by the visible things that he has made. And we know that we were like created in the image and likeness of God. And there's a part of that that is somewhat amusing. Because we're very peculiar creatures. But having said that, I don't think of God as peculiar. But how strange we are. How strange. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that when we're curious, we investigate. When we're thirsty, we look for something to drink. When we're hungry, we forage around for something to eat. And when we're lonely, we call a friend. There's so much about ourselves that we know so well, that we're tuned into, we're dialed into, and we know how to attend to our very basic and individual human needs. But at the end of the day, and this is what makes us so peculiar, is that our own heart remains a mystery to us. We don't understand ourselves at all. At all. And on top of it, while we all have a natural curiosity, it doesn't seem to extend to the movements that we experience in our heart. Where does the restlessness in our heart come from? Well, we all know what it's like. When an engine of a vehicle begins to idle really rough, we know what it's like when our appliances are starting to kind of go on the fritz. There's something unusual, there's something abnormal that gives us an indication that something's about to go south. But yet we don't pay attention to the restlessness of our own heart and try to investigate and understand what that means. It means that there's something terribly wrong. Terribly wrong. Because we're not at rest. We're not at rest. What does St. Augustine say to us? He said, "O God, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." And in his Confessions, he describes in fairly glorified detail how he had spent most of his life making poor choices. He was chasing after all these false joys and empty promises that the world offers. And he sees this world of objects, all things that God had created. And everything that God created is good. And St. Augustine calls them lovely. But he said, in casting myself on all these lovely things that you have made, I myself became unlovely. Because he never did that which God created him to do. He was not the man God intended him to be. And so later in his life, after his conversion, he would look back on the poor choices he had made. And you can catch just this tone of regret when he prays to God and says, "O late have I loved you, O beauty ever ancient, ever new. O late have I loved you? And it was only in God that he ultimately came to find his rest. And isn't that what we're all after at the end of the day? You know, we all experience, varying degrees of fatigue and exhaustion just with regards to our external, visible, mortal life, our jobs, our occupations, all of our activities, all the things we're involved in. And we always look forward to, that moment, of rest and how we can take a little R&R. But don't look back into our heart and see what it is longing for. It too is longing for deep, profound rest. So we come back to how God the Father, revealed his Son to the world. He said, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Listen. Listen to him. It just requires a little humility, to admit, okay, like St. Augustine, I've kind of done things my way for quite some time. And I have not found, the rest and the happiness that my heart desires. Maybe today I will ask God for that grace to begin anew, the day on which he begins a new creation with the appearance of the eternal Word through whom all things were made in the flesh. Precisely, to unite us, to himself, to satisfy, every longing, every desire that our heart longs for, to give us peace and restore to us the joy of our youth.